Hey guys, welcome back to my Diablo 2 series, where I, a complete noob to Diablo 2, play through the game for the first time. Now I said in the first episode that I wanted to play around with the ability Holy Freeze. I just like this idea of slowing my enemies down, so that way they can't do as much damage to me. But I've tried out Holy Freeze at this point, and I put 1 point into it, and I played around with it, and it was not as good as my Holy Fire. Now the problem was I couldn't put any more points into it because I was too low a level, so I'm going to try in this episode to get a few more levels, make a bit more progress, and see if we can just try out that Holy Freeze and get it working for us. So let's see how I got on with that. So first things first, the first quest that you get in Luke Lane in the city in Act 2 is to go down to the sewers and get rid of this guy called Radamant that's been raising the undead. So I head down to the sewers, I map them out, and I managed to find Radamant. He wasn't too challenging a fight, and I managed to kill him. When I killed him, I found the Horadric Scroll, which, those of you who don't know, this is a scroll that tells you the location of something called the Horadric Cube, an item that can allow you to transmute certain items into other items. This has a lot of uses in this game, and I don't know many of them just yet. I only know a few, so I know, for example, you can transmute potions and mana potions, or health potions and mana potions, into rejuvenation potions. And I know you can transmute like bolts into arrows and arrows into bolts. But the rest I'm going to have to either look up or figure out for myself. So after completing the sewers, I headed out into the desert. I started mapping out the first areas, and I found the Stony Tomb, which doesn't have any relevance to the quests, but I decided to clear it out for a bit of experience. So while I'm doing that, I wanted to ask you guys a question, which is, should I be using rune words? Now, the obvious answer to that is yes. Rune words are some of the most powerful items in the game from what I'm aware, and whenever I've seen someone that's like in endgame gear, they're just decked out in a bunch of rune words. But what I know is that rune words weren't originally in Diablo 2. There used to be a time when magic, rare, unique and set items were the best items in the game. Now that's rune words, and rune words you put on a socketed item, or I believe you can take a white item and transmute it into a socketed item. So actually I do know one more Horadric Cube recipe, or, well, I don't know the recipe for it, but I know that you can do this. So why does it matter if they weren't always in the game if they're in the game now? Well, from what I understand from watching some videos about classic Diablo before they added these rune words, there was a bit more of a focus on finding gear with good stats. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but you still need to find good gear like to put your rune words on. You still need to find like the best base gear to put the rune words on. But from what I understand, base gear doesn't tend to have as many stats as like magics and rares and uniques and set items do. So once you add the rune word on, there's a little bit less variation there. And I feel like there's a little bit less of that sense of like finding a new piece of equipment and suddenly having a new equipment upgrade. Because you might get a rune word early on in the game, and that might be your rune word that you use as your gear for like the next 3 or 4 acts, or it might even be something that you keep for the rest of the game. I could be wrong about this, I am a complete noob, but this is what I was understanding from watching some videos and reading a little bit about it. Like in Act 1, before I got my rune word, my stealth rune word, which is now my current chest armor piece, I think I upgraded my chest armor several times, and each time it was exciting getting something new, seeing what stats it had, and it would be trade-offs. There might be some stats that are better than the old piece and some stats that are worse, and so I had to do some thinking about what I was going to equip. But now I've got the stealth rune word, I haven't had a single change in chest armor piece since then. And from what I know, I think it could be a long time before I do get an upgrade. So I started having this thought in my head that maybe I want to actually experience things without rune words first. Maybe I actually want to put my stealth armor in the stash and try with regular chest armors first. Because I was watching this playthrough that someone was doing, this guy called Kruggers, and he was doing this playthrough of a Holy Freeze Paladin, actually the same thing that I'm doing. And he talked about how he wasn't using like trades or anything like that, he wasn't mulling between accounts, so same as me here. But he also mentioned that he wasn't using rune words, and he was talking about all these gear upgrades he got. I didn't understand a word of it, I didn't know what any of these items were. But he seemed excited about like finding a new drop from, you know, whoever he just killed. And I kind of want that excitement too. I don't want to just have some armor like early on in the game that I'm going to keep for the rest of the game. So that's what I'm asking you guys. Are rune words going to sort of decrease the amount of gear upgrades that I have over time? Because if they are, then I think I would like to put rune words off. I don't want to write them off completely. I do want to actually experience rune words. I like the idea of farming for rare runes and creating like super powerful rune words eventually. But I feel like maybe I should actually take my stealth armor off, put something else on, and at least complete normal mode, the first part of the game, without any rune words, and then maybe start using them in Nightmare or Hell. But I wanted to get some opinions on this. I wanted to hear some like pros and cons from you guys of both sides and what you think. For this episode, I'm going to stick with using my stealth. I'm going to keep it on me for now, but I'm going to have a long think about it, and your opinions could help shape that decision. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Next up, I went a little bit further with my exploration, and I found the Halls of the Dead. And this is of course where you find the Horadric Cube. So I managed to find the Horadric Cube. Now I can transmute things. Actually, one more recipe that I do know is that you can transmute lesser gems into higher level gems. You take 3 of the lower level gems, you put them in the Horadric Cube, you hit transmute, and it turns into the next highest level. So I did this with a bunch of gems from my stash to sort of free up some stash space. Not that I actually need it with Pluggy, but it's just a habit of mine in these games that I try to like keep things a little bit neat and clean, even if I have unlimited storage. After the Halls of the Dead, we have my favourite dungeon in the game so far. If you can't tell, I'm being completely sarcastic here. This place, I did not like this place. So the reason I don't like this place is because my first character that I tried, because for those of you who are unaware, I've tried up to Act 3 in D2R before I started playing the regular Diablo 2. And the character I made on D2R is a Summon Necromancer. So people who are familiar with Diablo 2 and who've played a Summon Necromancer know how annoying the maggot lair is on this character. Basically, you have a bunch of summons, and normally they would all be attacking the enemies at once, but you have like this 1 block wide corridor where you're fighting the enemies, and so one of your summons is fighting at once, and you're just sitting there waiting for ages for them to kill the enemy. And thankfully I'd had a point in Corpse Explosion, which allows you to blow up bodies, causing an explosion that hits surrounding enemies. This was really useful in this level, but I didn't have many points in it. I just had 1 point, and it wasn't really super effective. It was still quite slow to get through the lair. So I was already dreading going to this place. I didn't want to go through this again, but I went through it on my Paladin, and it is so much easier when you're just a good damage dealer. I was clearing out those corridors pretty damn quickly. By the way, as a side note, does anyone else playing Diablo 2 feel like they start to like see through the matrix in these dungeons? Like, I got this feeling when I was navigating these dungeons where I started to just like feel that I'm knowing which way to go to the end of the dungeon. Like, it starts to feel intuitive, and I don't know if I'm just imagining this or if I've actually like started to see the pattern of the dungeons. So anyway, at the end of the maggot lair, we have to face this big, awful looking thing that just sprays its guts everywhere when you kill it. And that then gets me the Staff of Kings, one of the items that we need to transmute into the staff that we'll use to open Tal Rasha's tomb, which is the end goal of Act 2. Right, so just a quick little thing. I was looking up what rune words I can make with a 2-slotted scepter, and I don't know if I saw all of them, but the ones that I was looking at, it seemed like I would need runes that I can't get in normal difficulty. And they required me to be a higher level, and I feel like by that point I'll probably have a new scepter. So I was thinking I should just put some gems or some runes in here, and I saw that the Tear rune gives mana after each kill, and some of my abilities, well, my Zeal ability uses 2 mana per attack. So I don't think I have massive mana problems right now, but I did notice when I was killing Radamant earlier that my mana went down a fair bit, so I was thinking of putting at least 1 Tear rune into here. I don't know if I'm going to put a second one. I'm just going to leave 1 for now, and then see if I put a second one in later, because I only have 3 of these. Next up, I went to the Lost City, which as a RuneScape player I appreciate the name of. There I found the ancient tunnels, which I believe again don't have anything to do with the quests, but I did get a decent amount of XP clearing out the tunnels. After that, I went to the Valley of the Snakes, and this is where you find the Claw Viper Temple, and this is where you get the head of the staff that you need to open Tal Rasha's tomb. Now, I've noticed something at this point, which is that when I'm facing the tall summoner enemies that like revive the dead, these guys are kind of annoying, and I seem to be taking a lot of damage and using a lot of potions, so I'm struggling a bit more than in Act 1. But I was able to find the head of the staff, put it in the Horadric Cube along with the staff itself, and create the Horadric staff. From there on, we casually find out that the guy who owns the palace in this place has a portal to another dimension in it, where there's an evil summoner that we need to potentially kill to get a journal from. So we head off and we find the Arcane Sanctuary. And this is actually a place that I also hated on my Summon Necromancer, because it's also very thin winding corridors, but it wasn't as bad. There was usually like a way to get 2 or 3 of your summons attacking someone rather than just one like in the maggot lair. So it was like my second least favourite area. This time again it was much easier with my Paladin, and I also managed to actually find the ending that I wanted to go to, because basically this level has 4 different paths that you can go down and only one of them is the one where you find the journal, and I managed to find that path first try. Whereas on my Summon Necromancer it was literally the 4th path that I took. I went through every other path and then the last one I tried was the one that I had to go down. So I went to the end, I found the journal, and that is where I get told the symbol that marks Tal Rasha's tomb. You also get a portal to the Canyon of the Magi. In the Canyon of the Magi are 7 tombs. One of them is Tal Rasha's tomb, and the other ones are fake tombs that pretend to be Tal Rasha's tomb. If you mouse over them it's going to say enter Tal Rasha's tomb, but they're identified by particular symbols. So you have to look at the right symbol to make sure you're going in the right tomb. But I decided I would go to a couple of the fake tombs before I went to the real tomb, just to gain some more experience, because I wanted to get some level ups. At this point I believe I'd already got a couple of levels since coming into Act 2, but I wanted to get a bit more. So I cleared out the first fake tomb that I found pretty easily. It wasn't too much of a challenge. I did have to quaff quite a few potions, but it was alright, I managed to get through it okay. Then I went to the second tomb, and here I was having to drink a serious amount of potions, and then this happened. Yeah, so I died and lost all the money I was carrying on me. Thankfully I've got a bunch in my stash still. I didn't want to run back to my corpse and just get killed immediately again, so I did something that you can do in Diablo 2, which is you can quit the game and re-enter the game and your corpse will be at your feet. You need to go back to your corpse in Diablo 2 to get your gear back, so I did that, I got my gear back and went back on my journey. I didn't go back to that tomb because the enemies there were just too strong, so I decided this time to find Tal Rasha's tomb and get this all over with. So I get to the end of Tal Rasha's tomb, I place the long stick in the orifice, which sounds like a fun Friday night. And it takes me a moment to remember that you have to click on the wall to actually enter Tal Rasha's tomb. And this next bit is scary because I fought this next guy, Duriel, who you fight in Tal Rasha's tomb, on my Summon Necromancer, and once again it was really hard there. I ended up dying. In fact, I think it was maybe my first death on that character. But I was prepared this time around. I brought some Thorine potions, which will get rid of a freeze effect on you, or at least reduce it. I forget which one it is. But apparently I didn't bring enough because he just froze me again after I'd used them all. Thankfully though, with a mix of my sacrifice ability and my zeal ability, I was able to take him down, killing Duriel a little bit easier than on my Summon Necromancer, though it was still quite a scary fight. Finishing up Tal Rasha's tomb, we run into this angel Duriel, who tells us that basically the demon Baal has already been freed and we're too late, and we need to travel to a place called Kurust to find Baal and Diablo before they free their brother Mephisto. So I have a strong suspicion that either Mephisto is going to be already freed, or he's not only going to be freed, but he's going to be the end boss of Act 3. So we have officially finished Act 2, now I think it's time to do what I set out to do at the beginning of this video. It is time to put some points in Holy Freeze. We're now level 22, I think this should be enough to get us a few points in. And it was. I was able to put 5 points in Holy Freeze, and I gave it a quick go on some local enemies. It seems to be working pretty well. I haven't tried anything tough with it, but it seems to be working a lot better than it was with just 1 point into it. So I think we're going to try out Act 3 with Holy Freeze. If we need to, we can switch back to Holy Fire. Thankfully we do have those infinite respecs, but for now I think I'm going to try out Holy Freeze and see what it can do for us. So I think that's a good place to round off the episode. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in Act 3.